It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
Our man, Jeff Parks from the Raw out of Melbourne, who has written this book all about life and death, a year in the life of the Melbourne Rebels, joining us in about 10 minutes or so. Let's talk some Bathurst. Eric Thompson joining us. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. I want to say before we start, we've been together since, 2009, I think it was. So, it's well over 15 years now, mate. You've been absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much for your support and your help and all the time that you've spent with us talking motorsport here at the platform, mate.
Mate, Marty, to be honest, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll never forget the day when I pitched the idea to you. You welcomed it with open arms. So I've got you to thank for taking a punt way back in the day when motorsport wasn't really covered by New Zealand mainstream media. So, Marty, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, mate.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, we got Bathurst this weekend, and Bathurst, and the whole Sunday sitting on a couch watching. How good is this race going to be, and why is it going to be good?
I reckon this one will probably be an iconic one, to be honest, Marty, because everything just on the back of Sandown, which really you didn't really know what was going to happen there till right at the very end. And Bathurst is just going to be the same. And I think part of it is you've got some real young chargers. One of the Kiwi, Ryan Wood, especially in qualifying. Qualifying is just going to be magical. That, that lap shootout for the top 10. And there's big raps on the young guy, Kai Allen. Some people are saying he's going to put the frighteners up to everybody. So you've got all your your stages, like you still got your Tanders racing in it. You still got, Whincup and Moffat and these guys that have been around for ages as co-drivers, plus all these young guys, Martin. It's just going to be wicked, to use, a phrase. I think it's going to be magic.
Yeah, who obviously, everyone thinks we know who the favourites are. Who are they in your mind?
Well, the Sandown winners, Scotty Pye, have definitely got to be in there because, the defending champion. And Scott Pye and, Will Brown's, he's proven, he's a race winner, so Will Brown and Scotty Pye. And Pye's caused a bit of grief by having a pop at Supercars and some of the teams in general on his podcast, so he'll be able to prove that, I might be out of full-time drive, but I know what I'm talking about, so he's got something to prove. And, of course, there'll be Whincup and Feeney. You can't rule them out. They're going to be sort of there and thereabouts. And I'd say, as far as the Kiwis are concerned, Marty, it'd be Matty Payne and Garth Tander. Garth Tander's going for his 5th or 6th win at Bathurst as a main driver and a co-driver. So, he knows his way around there like the back of his hand, and Matty Payne's made the top 10 shootout before. And maybe Chaz Mostert and Lee Holdsworth, they've been there and thereabouts so many times. So they could be in, but there's just, if you look through the list of who's driving, there's quite a few. Well, there's James Golding and David Russell. I think they finished 4th at Sandown, and they were one of the quickest pairing all during the day. But came a little bit unstuck, so a couple of dark horses as well.
Is it possible that somebody out of nowhere that no one thinks could win?
Well, it is that race, Marty. There's always that opportunity. You could probably say there's Craig Lowndes and Cooper Murray, not Murphy. Young guy. They finished really well at Sandown, inside the top 5. They're a wild card entry. Craig Lowndes hasn't raced full-time for years. Cooper Murray isn't in the full-time game. So there's two guys that aren't main game drivers. They're wild card. And especially around Bathurst with Lowndes, is iconic around there. And they would be an absolute dark horse, mate. In fact, that's the sort of pairing you'd put your lazy fiver on.
Okay. What about the Sandown winners, Brown and Pye?
Yeah. Well, they've got the record, going into here. Tail feathers up, and I was saying earlier, Scotty Pye's got a point to prove. And logically, good car, good drivers, they both know their way around there, and they're both quick. And they got on the podium, and I think it was 21 or 22 or something like that. So, they'll be hard to beat, really hard to beat.
How many times have you been?
Oh, God. Physically, my first race I went to was in 1981, and I think I've watched every single race bar 6, and I've been to 22 of them, I think.
Yeah.
When I was living abroad, I always watched it live when I was abroad overnight. So I think I've only missed half a dozen.
Eric Thompson.
And I've raced there on bikes as well.
I know. Eric Thompson is with us, a leading motorsport rider for the Herald for a couple of decades. So when did we start getting it on TV here?
In New Zealand, I'm not too sure because I was watching it in Australia. I still think you got it on TV, probably the 70s. Because remember you had, the Kiwis, the gentleman Jim Richards.
Yeah, right.
Still one of the winningest Kiwis in supercars, and he was all conquering, especially in the days when you had the Godzilla, the Nissans and all the Sierra Cosworths and all that lot, when it was just, run what you brung type days when anything was the go. So, I think probably mid to late 70s. You could have probably still watched it in New Zealand.
Is the track manifestly different, and how is it different now, say, than it was 5 years ago? How was it 10 years ago? How was it when you started watching it?
When I started watching it, Conrod Straight was straight. Like there was no kink in it. And because the cars were just getting, and the bikes were just getting so fast. And when you went up through the cutting, up the mountain, it was just in the 80s, it was just a dirt bank. So there was no runoff, and you had the cheese cutter across the top, which was called cheese cutter because it was Amco railing, just 2 rails of steel. So if you went through that, it was just a bit of a cheese cutter. The only major change, would be the pits and the pit areas, the chicane, the kink on Conrad, and just some little bits of runoff area, really. Other than that, mate, and that's what makes that track so iconic, Marty, is it hasn't really been fiddled with too much.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.